Okay, guys, I am out today because I need to stay home with my son because his daycare is closed today, so it is what it is. But I still got to do this lecture so that we stay on time. Um, and Wednesday we have a court case and little last minute review, and Thursday, Friday we still have the multiple choice test and the FRQs. Your homework tonight is to outline the rest of the FRQs, the remaining 5. I have posted a video walkthrough of us outlining the FRQs at Saturday school if you'd like to watch that and make your homework a little bit easier. Okay, let's get started. The topic of today's class is campaign finance. In other words, like the president and Congress and how do they get their money. So let's take a look. Okay, today we have like pep rally schedules, so I don't think we have time to actually do bell work, but let's just look at this question. The question is, when an oil company or Indian casino donates to a president or a congressman, what do you think they expect in return? So if you want to just like pause this PowerPoint and turn to your neighbor and discuss, but you don't need to actually write down the answer to this bell work question. There's not enough time. Okay, I'm going to give you a second to pause the video if you haven't paused it already. Okay, well, I hope on the bell work you discussed that I think a lot of times people, or especially corporations, donate to Congress people and the president because they're trying to get access to that person, and they're trying to get laws passed that would favor their business. Okay. What we could do, if you would like to, is you could take a second and you can click that link and watch the video. It's a little bit old, but it's still good. So why don't you click that link and watch the video? Okay, we're gonna get started with our notes, and so you want to make that, I think it's gonna be the last assignment in our notebook, and it's called 210 2.10 campaign finance. And one of the questions we'll be paying attention to is compare soft money and hard money. Okay, these notes kind of cover like 3 different time periods, like the 70s, the 2000s, and like in 2010 and after. So we're going to start with the 70s. Before the 70s, it was kind of the wild, wild west for campaign finance. People could accept money and they didn't have to say where it came from. In the 70s, we passed a new law called the Federal Election Campaign Acts. And pretty much the thing you need to know is down here, that all candidates must disclose where their money came from. So a lot of people, they get donations when they're running for office, and it was kind of shady before because people would just get money, and it could be like from your next door neighbor Billy, or it could be from the mob or the mafia. But now you need to actually disclose where the money is coming from, and it created a federal agency called the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, to regulate our elections and make sure that people are not breaking the rules. Okay. The law did some more stuff than that. It also said it placed limits. So if I wanted to donate to Ken Calvert in Eastvale, I was only allowed to give him $1,000 per election. Now I could give him $1,000 for the primaries and $1,000 for the general election, but then that was it until the next election. So it placed limits, and that's kind of controversial because, like, is that limiting your freedom of speech to not be able to give him $10,000 or $1 million? But to be honest with you, I think it's good that these limits exist. Also, it limited the amount that PACs could donate, and you're probably wondering what the heck is a PAC. So I think we should maybe take little notes on like what is a PAC right here. Look at the wall to your left. Look at the wall of all those posters. Those posters are interest groups, and when interest groups want to influence an election and donate and get involved, they form PACs. PACs stand for political action committees. Political action committees, and a PAC can donate up to $5,000 per candidate per election. So they can donate more than me and you, but they still are limited to $5,000 if they're directly donating. So an example might be, like Greenpeace is an interest group and they want to like save the environment. Maybe they donate $5,000 to Bernie Sanders because he's really in favor of the environment, and they want him to get elected. Okay, this slide has a lot of words, but it's almost like I kind of want you to listen to what I'm saying more than listening to the words. So here's what this slide is about. When you used to be able to run for president, like about 12 years ago, when people would run, and before that, the government, they didn't want it to be like only rich people could run for president. So they used to do this program where a candidate, someone who was running, could receive subsidies, federal subsidies, help from the government to run. Where, like, let's say, let's make up somebody who's running in the year 2008. You know, Ross. Ross is running. What's his name? Ross Geller is running in the year 2008, and he is running for president. And people kind of like him, and he's able to. People donate to him, and he's able to raise $20 million. Well, the government did something to help people that run, where they would match what you raised. So if Ross raised 20 million, they would also give you $20 million. So they would match it. And this is a way that, like, not it, that way people running for president would have some money basically, and it wouldn't just be the rich running for office. And this seemed like a pretty good idea. And you could get up to like $90 million of matching. And for a long, long time, people accepted this help. They accepted this help until Barack Obama. So what happened is, if you accept this help and you agree, like, let's do the matching of the money, if you're running for president, you accept this help, then when you reach 90 million, you're not allowed to raise any more money. Like so if you agree to raise this money, you're limited in what you can raise. So you can raise 90 and they'll match 90, and you can't get any more money than that. But Obama was able to raise so much money that he was like, I just won't do the matching. And he was able to raise, like, I think like $750 million and it was uncapped, so people could donate to him. People still were limited. They could only give, $1,000 to him. But so many people did it that he was able to raise a big amount of money. And kind of Obama changed everything. Now nobody does this. Now no one does this federal matching. Like Trump and Hillary and Obama, they all just raise unlimited sums separately, and they don't do the federal matching. There's a test question that tries to trick you, and it asks you, like, do people in Congress get them when they're running for office? Do they get the money matched? And the answer is no. This matching program is just for presidential candidates. So look, there's a whole bunch of words here. I don't really want you to write a whole bunch. It's more about what I said. So this is kind of important. Presidential candidates who receive this money are subjected to spending limits. So they can't, they have a cap. So if you don't accept the money, then you're not subject to spending limits. This is just a word that you should know that comes up a lot on today's lecture and other lectures. The word subsidy means a sum of money granted by the government to assist. So an example would be like when you guys go to college, there are subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. The better one are the subsidized loans, the ones that have a subsidy, because they pay your interest while you're in school. So the government is giving you a sum of money, paying your interest while you're in school to assist you. I want you to get creative for a second and think, and you can pause the video so that the PowerPoint doesn't keep going, but think for a second, if you were a candidate and you were running, what are some ways you could get around these laws? If you can only accept $1,000 per person per election, what are some ways you could get around these laws? Okay, an important court case that happened in 1976 was Buckley v. Vallejo. Now, some people thought these limits of, like, me giving money and being limited to $1,000, that these limits were unconstitutional because they were impacting your freedom of speech. So we're going to have a court case in 1976 called Buckley v. Vallejo. And in this court case, there are two questions that are going to come up. Is it okay to limit people to spending, like, just being able to donate $1,000, or is that an impact on your freedom of speech? And then another one, what if I'm super duper rich myself? What if I'm a billionaire and I want to run for Congress and spend, $7 million. Am I allowed to do that, or can I only spend like $1,000 of my own money? So these questions went before the court, and the court upheld the $1,000 limit on contributions. The court upheld that, but it struck down um, limits on spending. So there can be no limits on spending, but there can be limits on what's donated to you, like that limit of $1,000 per person. And then one more thing: if you're rich, you can donate money to yourself without limit. So there's a few different questions. I know that this last one is on the test. If you're rich, you can donate money to yourself without limit. That's part of your freedom of speech. But if you're rich, you can't donate money to other people without limits. Okay, jumping ahead in time, we have the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act. It's also sometimes called the McCain-Feingold Bill. There are the two guys, John McCain right here and Feingold. And they worked together. He was a Republican and Feingold was a Democrat. And they worked together to make some changes because there was some shady stuff going on with money. And so this is probably like a positive change. So there's two different kinds of money. There's soft money and there's hard money. Soft money is money that's donated, that's undisclosed, so it's like nobody's keeping track of where it came from, and it's unlimited to parties. So what the McCain-Feingold bill did, really all you need to know is it kind of got rid of soft money, and it kind of changed everything over into hard money. Hard money it's more traceable, it is disclosed, it's trackable. So McCain kind of got rid of soft money, which was like shady, dark money, and it made things more public. I think this was important in 2002. It's been almost 20 years and it's a little bit less important now. One of the other things that it did was, you remember I keep saying you could only donate $1,000. That limit has gone up. So this law increased the limit, it kind of modernized it because $1,000 that was the 70s. Today it's closer to like $2,600. Memorizing these figures is not super important, but you should know that it's up now from $1,000 to like around 2,000 something. And then PACs are still limited to $5,000. And yeah, okay. Number one thing you need to know though with the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act is that it kind of got rid of soft money, or it looked to curtail soft money. Okay, so let's kind of look at this situation. Um, there are no subsidies for when you run for Congress. You remember like how we do give subsidies for people running for president, making it really, really hard to defeat people who have already run or already won, the incumbents. I looked up Ken Calvert today. He has $800,000 in his bank account, and his opponent has like $5,000. So he's killing it. All right, and then there's no limits on spending in congressional races, so they can get as much money as they like as long as they follow that limit per person, and they can spend as much money as they like. And usually, the person that spends the most money is going to win. Part of the problem with this is that Congress people spend so much time raising money. Like Ken Calvert will have these lunches where you have to pay like $2,000 to go to have lunch, and it's a room with like 100 people inside of it. They spend so much time raising money and not enough time maybe like running our government and doing the right thing. Okay, one more thing that's good to know is these little groups called 527, which are groups that engage in political activities, and they spend money on uh, issue advocacy ads where they praise or slam a candidate. Basically, if they're gonna run like an anti-Hillary ad, it might be paid for by a 527 group. I know that on the test is the phrase issue advocacy ads, and it says what do they do, and I think the answer is one of the choices is they criticize a candidate who's running for office. So you should take a note on that. Okay, just some more stuff you need to know. This is a lot of words that basically says, you remember how I talked about when you're running for president, the government will match you dollar for dollar? They only do that if your party earned 5% of the popular vote in the last election. So basically they do it for the Democratic Party, Republican Party, but for these little parties like the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, they have to have gotten 5% of the vote in order to have the matching. And for them, getting 5% can be a little hard. One thing we're noticing more and more is that when people run for president, it's becoming less and less about the party, and campaigns are more about the candidate. So, like, you notice that the election was more about Trump and less about the Republican Party because campaigns are getting more and more centered on the candidate. So there's a lot of words here, guys. You can shorten them. You don't have to write all that. I would just write down campaigns are getting more candidate centered, like Trump in 2016. Candidates are starting to depend more and more on outside money to run. I don't really care about that. Don't worry about it. The cost of campaigning has risen. That's true. And you need to raise millions and millions of dollars. Okay, and the last thing we're going to talk about is probably the most important thing, and that is a court case called Citizens United v. the FEC. So this is in 2010. Remember I talked about today's lecture kind of covers 3 periods: the 70s, when we created the FEC and we created limits on donations, and we created, I don't know, we had Buckley v. Vallejo. And then the early 2000s, which was the McCain-Feingold, and it limited soft money. And then we have kind of the modern age, 2010. There was this very, very famous case, one of the most important cases of the last 20 years, is Citizens United. All right, Citizens United is a group, and they made a movie about Hillary Clinton because they didn't like her, and they wanted to run an ad against her. I think this is in the 2008 election. So they're a conservative group, and they hated Hillary Clinton. And they spent, a couple $1 million making this movie. You can find the movie on YouTube. Well, that they got sued because people said, "Hey, you're spending more than $1,000 or $2,000 on behalf of basically like John McCain against Hillary Clinton. Like you're breaking the law." And this went all the way to the Supreme Court. And basically, they have to decide: can somebody spend unlimited amounts of money on behalf of a candidate if they never talk to the candidate? If they don't give the money directly to a candidate, can they spend this money? And the way that we phrase that is independent expenditures. So let me give you another scenario. Imagine that I'm a billionaire and I really, really like Donald Trump. Can I just run commercials for him? And like, I'm not going to give him the $2,000. I'll keep the money for myself, but I'm going to spend my money to run commercials. Is that okay? Is that freedom of speech? To me, this case went to the Supreme Court, and I thought, oh, for sure they're going to strike it down. Like, that's a violation of spending. They said it was okay. And they said that you do have the right to have unlimited spending. As long as you're not talking with Trump, you can run ads for Trump. But if you start talking to him and coordinating, then that's like you're working together, and that would be breaking the rules. So what's crazy, guys, is before this, I don't know if you can see my hands, most of the money was donated to candidates. After this decision, people, they don't give as much to the candidates. They give to groups that spend on behalf of the candidates, and these groups now collect, we're talking like elections for president now. They're raising like $1 billion now. So spending has grown like crazy and out of control. And so some of the number one donators to campaigns, or I guess spending, because they're not really donating to a campaign, is like businesses and unions and stuff. So the court said that people spending this money and making commercials is part of their First Amendment. Spoiler alert, I don't think this decision was a very good one, and I look forward to the day when we kind of change this, because I think money in elections doesn't lead to good results. It leads to the person who spends the most money wins, and that's like very un-American to me. Over here is a link to an 8-minute video. I don't know if you guys have the time to do this. I kind of feel like maybe you should skip it. But it's a video about Citizens United and like what it was and how they came to that decision. Okay, take a look at this cartoon. See, some of the criticism of Citizens United is that they're basically giving corporations or businesses a lot of the rights that were for people in the Constitution, that they have the right to donate and have their free speech be heard. And this is just a little percentage thing here to show you that right around the time of Citizens United, pretty much all the groups, whether you're Republican or Democrat, disagreed with the decision. They did not. They think it's bad for America. Okay, the notes are done. I want you to... you can skip the summary. I feel like soft money and hard money is not as important today as like Citizens United. And then I want you to do the study guide for 210. Please do the study guide for 210 campaign finance. I think that I left my stamp out, so if you guys want the sub to stamp your study guide, just your study guide, that would be fine. Okay, for your homework, I want you to outline all the FRQs. You already did 5, so I want you to do the other 5. Remember, I made a video where I did a walkthrough of this. You can make it much faster for you. And then I'd like you to, if you can, I'd like you to, this is like a definitely, like, yes, please. But if you can, I'd like for you to do one attempt on the multiple choice practice test. And that way, you know, on Wednesday when you see me, you can ask me if you didn't understand any of the questions. And I can help you if you had any ones that were tricky. Okay? All right. Text me if you guys have any questions. I will see you on Wednesday. Also, if you have extra time in class right now, you could either watch a video on the projector about Citizens United. There was that 8-minute one that you might have skipped. Or you can start working on those FRQs right now and outlining them. Okay?